Explore with me today as I take you through the decaying corridors of a 100-year-old abandoned site. Once referred to as the White Plague or consumption, tuberculosis has plagued humanity for over 5,000 years. By 1850, it was the leading cause of death, having killed nearly 1 billion people in the preceding 300 years. Its effects on the young and also many poets during this age led to it being romanticized in popular culture. With the progress of science, by the mid-1800s, there was a movement started by George Boddington of England to create sanatoriums. These facilities were to expose patients to constant rest, good nutrition, and fresh air in an effort to combat the disease. They became popular from the end of the 1800s onwards in Europe and across the US by the early 1900s. This is where our story begins. Originally having been built near the turn of the 20th century, the sanatorium complex we are exploring today was founded after a nearby simple clinic for the testing of tuberculosis grew to a tent city for patients. A donation was secured and the new buildings were constructed on a hill to house them. Over the years, more and more housing was created and the campus expanded to a total of 10 buildings and included doctors' housing, surgical units, conference rooms, and lab units. However, in 1943, a breakthrough had occurred with antibiotics, and by the 1950s, TB was no longer a leading health concern and sanatoriums began to close. During the 1960s, some of the campus was torn down and the facility, which by then was the only in the area, was finally closed in 1970. In that decade, additional buildings were removed and the site became a hospital for alcoholics and then a nursing home, which closed many years ago. Today, just 2 buildings stand forlorn and forgotten on the hill. This brick edifice and the old power plant would be the first 2 things one would have seen upon entering the campus for treatment. The power plant would have provided energy based off coal and possibly been used to dispose of trash or medical waste. On the back side lie old couches and furniture, slowly consumed by the grass. Along this frontage is the old porch for patients. Let's head inside and see what's left. Up the stair and into the halls. Each room is a different color. There are clear signs of scrappers here. The inside much resembles what the world might look like years after a pandemic wiped out humanity. Light fixtures hang and paint peels, revealing even older layers. This large room may have been for recreation purposes. Off to the side, a suspended second-story porch would have allowed patients to recline at their leisure and enjoy the fresh country air. An open door leads to a sharp drop to the pavement below. Back along the corridors, the decay of 20 years is very apparent, and the only sound is the echo of your own footsteps down the empty halls. Over the decades, countless patients would have spent their days coughing in beds in these very rooms and hoping for relief from what was an all-consuming illness. An empty elevator shaft drops to a disused and rusty compartment. Here and there, black mold grows where water leaks have infiltrated. Vandals have even damaged the doors in the building, which now lay underfoot. We head upstairs to the top floor. A bundle of flowers and lace lies on the floor of this room. While most suffered here, perhaps some found it a more pleasurable experience than others, and some moments of solace. Many of my favorite writers, such as Sheridan Le Fanu of Ireland, were inspired in their own Victorian tales of horror by the excitement of the TB patients' nightly, delirious fevers, with their attached mental and physical exhilaration that these would cause in them. When the patients awoke in the morning, they would be listless and drained of energy, and stay in bed until their next episode each night, much like a nocturnal vampire. This theme of the day would tie directly into the great New England vampire panic of the 1800s in New England, where the deceased, the most famous of which is perhaps Mercy Brown, were exhumed upon their death from TB. The folk belief at the time held that in the feverish dreams of those they infected, they would physically return to feed upon them and infect the living from beyond the grave. The only cure was to destroy the heart, burn the body, or behead it. 30 such famous cases exist, but modern research shows this may be in the hundreds. Whether Le Fanu and others amplified fears helping to cause the panic or merely tapped into it is an item up for debate. Regardless, we still live out the trope of tuberculosis panics today in horror films and TV, even if the disease is mostly forgotten. A rusted ladder leads to the skies above. The old elevator remains shut forever with some kind of dark stain along the doors. Further down the hall is a sort of antiquated walk-in tub for patients. We head down the stair to the bottom and final level. Here it is darker and uninviting and even more damaged by scrappers. The old entrance where patients would have possibly first stepped inside looks much the same. A light from above floods the inside of the elevator. A single chair points at nothing. And further ahead, a room that may have once been a cold storage. Another tub for patients long disused. We head to the exit to the main building and outside. And here is the last remaining building of the complex. Walking inside, there are some more modern items that may have been moved and left here. A large coal boiler dominates the room. It would have been used to create heating for the surrounding buildings in the harsh New England winters. To the side, what looks to be an old incinerator, possibly for medical waste and trash, sits alone and still full of ashes from its last use. Soon this fossil from an age dominated by the disease it was built for will be gone. Plants grow across the outside and obscure the entrance, while its empty windows look out from rooms once filled with patients condemned to stay. Ironically today, with the rise of untreated TB cases and the new drug-resistant strains, these types of forgotten and vanishing establishments may well be needed again in our own lifetimes. This at exactly a time where the White Plague and its destruction are largely forgotten and the last buildings used to treat it are becoming just a fading memory.